Bismillah walhamdulillah wa sallallahu ala rasulillah. So we're on part 3. Inshallah, it's going to be quick, inshallah. So the among the what is proper to believe, to know that what God exists, to know that God is one, to know that God is beginningless, to know that God is everlasting, to know that God is not in need, to know that God is attributed with power, with knowledge, with will, with hearing and sight, without what body parts, organs, instruments. That God is attributed with life, without it what being a material body and without it being a spiritual body. And now the attribute of Kalaam, it's an Arabic term, so in English that some people will say speech, but maybe communication is the better word. The Kalaam of Allah Ta'ala is not a voice or words or letters or language or sound or gestures, because when humans communicate, that's how we communicate, right? You can be what? Written communication. It can be spoken. It can be what? By gestures, like sign language, for example. So different ways, modes of what? Communication. The Creator is attributed with Kalaam, and it's not like what they show in the movies. They'll claim that they claim that there's a character, what, Moses, and he's on a mountain, and then he hears what, a deep voice coming out of the cloud. This is not the Kalaam of Allah.
Or a burning bush.
Or a burning bush. Nah. So the Kalaam of Allah Ta'ala is not a voice, letters, language, sound, or the like. This is a topic that we need to go into detail on a separate lesson. But just to know, because what you do see people say is they'll talk about, like you said, the voices and things. This is not the speech of God, the Kalaam of God. You hear people saying like, God talked to me this morning. And he's hearing what? Voices. Or he claims to hear voices. Mm-hmm. The human being may hear voices, sometimes he has a what? Mental imbalance. Yeah. People who are schizophrenic, they'll tell you that I hear what? Voices. Yeah. Sometimes it's from a like chemical or whatever hormonal imbalance in the brain, in the mind, and sometimes it's from what? The influence of the jinn. The jinn are these interdimensional beings. They are real. We're not spooky about it. I mean, the what exists isn't limited to our what? Senses. Even the scientists, what do they say? We only perceive one sliver of the spectrum of what exists, even from what they say, right?
They said we know more about space than we know about our own ocean.
Yeah. Like, look at the things that we don't perceive even in this room, right? Do you see the air in this room? No. Do you see the Wi-Fi in the room? Do you see the radio signals in the room? Do you see the television waves in the room? You don't perceive these. If you have an instrument, you have a phone or something, you can pick some of these things up. But you don't what? Perceive them. But they are what? They are here. Yeah. So there are things that we're beyond our senses. The jinn, these beings, that they exist, and they are what? Beyond our senses. There's nothing spooky or weird about it. It makes sense. The Creator who created life in soil, because human beings are physically, essentially what? Soil. Created life in the jinn are created from what? Fire. As God created life and beings created from soil, God created life and beings created from fire. Doesn't contradict anything. So that's another talk, inshallah. But just some people, they claim to hear God, they'll say talking to them, and they're hearing voices. And sometimes it's because of just a strictly mental problem. Sometimes, of course, they're lying. And then sometimes because they are being affected by the jinn. And the last of the attributes to know what is befitting of God is to know
the creation.
Absolute non-resemblance to the creation.
Say whatsoever.
Yeah. To know that the Creator is completely different from all created phenomena. Absolutely different from the creation. So when we say God doesn't resemble the creations, we don't mean kind of, sort of, or for the most part. We mean what? Absolutely. So when you look at the properties of the created beings, you would know that the Creator is clear of those properties. Like what? Size. Everything in this room you see has a what? Size.
Shape.
It has a shape. Has a what? Color. Texture. Yeah, mass. Like the table has a what? Mass or weight. The phone has a weight. The pen has a weight, etc. The chair, etc., etc. So the Creator is clear of all these spatial characteristics. Because what is the nature of a spatial being? Something that occupies space. It's going to be what? It's going to be in one place or
another.
And we know that before places existed, the Creator was existing. So God does not have a size. The thing that's a spatial entity, spatial being, has a what? Size. This bottle, can you pour a full gallon of water inside this bottle as it is?
No.
No. Why? Because the gallon requires more volume, more space. The Creator does not require the creations in order to exist. So the Creator exists without a place because the Creator is different from everything else. And that's, one can think of also the Creator is what? Absolutely not in need of anything. Absolutely not in need of the creations. Absolutely does not resemble the creations. And this, you think about it, again, when you look at, like you said, it helps you to learn these attributes, helps you to distinguish between the proper belief and the false beliefs. And that's a fact. I mean, for someone, I investigated religions when I was searching. And I'm trying to what? Compare the different religions. And the religion that call people what? To worship one God, to worship the Creator and not the creations. And then when I started learning more, what is the proper belief about God, it was very clear the Muslim belief is distinct from these other religions. That's a fact. I mean, I was back in the day, and I'm not bragging on myself, I'm absolutely not bragging about it, but I used to be like into the yoga type stuff and the meditation. I was trying to find the truth. I mean, I knew the Christian thing was false, but I was trying to, dipping into a little bit of Buddhism and things like this. And at the end, when all is said and done, it's like, but who is God? Like with the yoga stuff, they got all these idols, because it's Hinduism. Yoga is related to Hinduism. So it's got, and I absolutely didn't believe in praying to these idols. It didn't make any sense. Okay. This is an idol. Why would I worship an idol? I want to worship the Creator. But in order to worship the Creator, you have to what? Know what is proper to believe about the Creator. Because some people will try to worship God, but they think God is a giant light. Isn't that the case? Yeah, people have, like the people who meditate. They'll go into a deep state, like a trance-like state, and maybe they start to see lots of light and things like this. And then they think, now I've seen God, or I became one with God, they claim. This is not God. This is phenomena of the mind. Sometimes it's what? Demonic influences. But whatever this is, it's not God, because related to this is the saying of what? Of Dhunun al-Mystery. Okay. Our brother's namesake. What is that saying? Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah is different from that.
That's the biggest problem with human beings. Number 13.
No. That's it.
That's the biggest problem with human beings.
All through history, through most of history, don't you see the people worshiping idols?
Yep. The biggest problem with resembling God to creation.
Keeps them not understanding.
Yeah. This blocks the understanding of the person, whether it's an idol or an idol in the what?
In the mind.
In the mind. So we know no size. God has no size, no shape, no color, no form, no mass, no weight. God is not in a distance or a direction. The Creator is absolutely different from the creations. And this is why the Muslim scholars, they said, whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah is different from that. This is our belief. This is our belief. You look in you look in like the Christian literature, and they have all these pictures they claim are God. All these different pictures. So let's mention one more statement, inshallah, and then we'll close out. Brother David, I know we covered a lot. Is it clear? I know for these guys it's a review, but is it clear for you?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Some of them are also reviews. Some of them are new to me.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Don't feel shy to ask. There are two people who don't learn, right? I'm not saying you're among these people. I'm just saying as a reminder for all of us. Two types of people don't learn. The arrogant person, because he thinks, well, I know everything. Meaning I know this material. That's ugly. Even if you know it, alhamdulillah, listen with a what? With a humble heart. Yeah. So the arrogant doesn't learn, and the what? The shy. The shy person doesn't want to raise their hand or ask questions and say, man, what are they going to think about it? Ask away. Don't be shy. Because that way, inshallah, you will what? You'll learn. Maybe even though that guy is sitting there, maybe he's the arrogant guy, he will learn from your what?
Ask question.
Yeah, he will learn from your question. So let's mention this. We'll finish with this, inshallah. This is what one of the sheikhs said, and it's a golden statement. Allah exists without a beginning and everything else exists with a beginning.
Clear.
Allah is the creator and everything else
It's the creation.
is creation. Now, Allah exists without a beginning, and everything else exists with a beginning. Allah is the creator, and everything else is a creation. That's it. This is our belief. You want to understand what the proper belief is? That's it. To know that, as we said earlier in the lesson, that Islam is the religion that calls humanity to worship the Creator and not the creations. And as you said, Brother Yaqeen, what you find most of the people are engaged in what? Worshipping creations. Whether they are things outside of them or things they
Image in their mind.
image in their mind. And we're not worshiping idols, and we don't have pictures and things. We don't pray to those things, and we don't pray to the images that come up in our minds. We know that all the mental phenomena is created by Allah Ta'ala. And whatever you imagine, meaning whatever of this mental phenomena that arises, Allah is different from that. This is a very beautiful belief, brothers.
Alhamdulillah.
It's,
Alhamdulillah.
This quote, was it from one eye shakes?
This is from Shaykh Abdullah. It's a very beautiful statement. Allah, the Creator, exists without a beginning. And everything else exists with a beginning. Everything else. We said light, darkness, distance, direction, time, space. Everything else exists with a what? Beginning. Then it says Allah is the Creator, and everything else is a creation.
Brother Ali, that's very clear.
Allah. Praise be to Allah. And this is when we talk about the knowledge and what's called the Fardul Ain knowledge, the personal obligatory knowledge. This is the foundation, is understanding of what? Belief. Because when a person's belief is strong, alhamdulillah, even if they fall short in doing other matters, they still will hold on to the what? Belief. What you'll find in many cases, the person, he becomes a Muslim, and then the people put on him, you can't do this, you can't do that, you got to do this, you can't. Alhamdulillah, maybe they are right in what they're saying. Sometimes people go over the limit, but maybe they are right. But this is a new person. If you put all of that on him, he'll feel like, man, this is going to be overwhelming. You start from the belief, and it makes the heart what?
It's okay, man.
Open up. And then the person, he'll have a desire. I want to do more. This is so profound. I never heard this. This is so profound, and I love what I hear. I want to learn more and do more. For the sake of Allah. But when you tell the person you have to do this, you have to do that, and then there's like sunnah, things that are not obligations, but they tell them like he thinks it's and he feels like, and then he doesn't even really know who he's doing it for, because he doesn't have the proper belief. But if you start with the belief, it's easy. It's easy to believe properly in the Creator, and you don't have to sit here and twist your mind to say, well, I don't know what he meant, but I'll just no, this makes sense. And alhamdulillah, step by step. But we do need to cover how to pray and to fulfill the obligations. We don't leave this. But the first step is to understand
That's our Lord, brother.
This is to know the right belief about our Lord. Alhamdulillah, with this, when you meet people who are not Muslim, you can explain very clearly what we believe about God. And you can get them to think. If they don't become Muslim on the spot, at least you get them to think. And that's a start.
Good start.
And it's a good start. And inshallah they will become Muslim. Walhamdulillah wa sallallahu ala rasulillah. We'll stop here, brothers.